Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the OFSA webinar, How to Market to People Without Them Even Knowing It. My name is Karen, and I will be your host today. By now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the housekeeping notes, but I'm going to let you know again. You've been placed in silent mode and will only be able to hear myself and the presenter. If you have any questions, please type them into the question box on your screen, and they will be answered during a question period at the end of the presentation. Also, please note that only registered attendees that participate in the full webinar, including polls, will receive a certificate of completion. If you're unable to respond to these polls, please send a note in the question panel. Today we have Alex McCracken, VP of Sales at Funeral Innovations with us. Alex brings over a decade of experience in the digital marketing and sales, working in industries from drones to agriculture. Over the last 3 years, Alex has brought his diverse experience in building customer relationships online to Funeral Innovations. He has spoken at numerous state and national association conventions and several summits across the United States. Alex's passion is bringing the technology and strategic advancements in business to business and in business to consumer sales and marketing to industries that need it most. At this time, I'd like to thank and welcome Alex for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here. I know the burning question on everyone's mind is, am I wearing pants? The answer to that is no. However, I am wearing shorts, so don't fret. So I appreciate everyone having me here today. And what I want to do is take you through a little bit about, how we can market people to them without them knowing it. So really, when you look at this, the right message at the right time is what builds trust. It strengthens relationships and ultimately it helps you grow your business, right? And one of the great things about this is when you have the right message and deliver at that right time, people don't even know that you're marketing to them. So I'm going to take you through a little bit about this principle, how it works, and some details around it. Happy to answer questions as we go through this. So I have my eye on the question field. So if anything does pop up and I catch it, I will try to address it. Otherwise, we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. Right. So when we look at messaging, sometimes the right message is easy to know, but more often than not, it's hard to know if you're delivering the right message. So with where we're at today, why don't we look at one of the examples of an easy way to know if it's the right message or not. All right. So would you rather see an ad or anything or order a book for something called Kiss a Stranger during the time of COVID? Or maybe something about what parents need to know about social distancing during a health crisis, right? I think it's all pretty clear that nobody wants to kiss some random stranger right now, but we do need to know about how to handle social distancing, right? So, when we put out the right message, like this book on the right, it shows that we understand the audience, we're relating to them, and we're there for them, right? We're not seeming obtuse by saying, hey, now's a great time to kiss a stranger. We're saying, hey, I understand who you are, what you're dealing with, and I have some resources for you, something of value. Now, this whole type of principle of what we're going to talk about today is really summarized in what's called content marketing. Okay, so content marketing is a technique for creating and taking valuable and relevant and consistent content and putting it out into your community and then attracting people to those different pieces of content. Right. And here's the key thing that you might notice here is that we're trying to do it to a clearly defined audience. OK, so we're not saying we need to provide content to every single person out there. We want to provide it to the right individuals at the right time and have it be consistent. And that's what content marketing is. And it's very popular today. You'll probably see this all over the place now. You may have heard of the term educated consumer. Well, we get educated consumers by providing them the content that helps them understand the things that they need to know about those products or services. But ultimately, what the objective of this content marketing is it's driving profitable customer action. Okay, so this is an interesting one to break down too. We're not saying that content marketing directly relates and turns into sales. We're saying that content marketing creates action. Engagement. That's what we want with content marketing. But what are some of the advantages of content marketing, right? Why would we do this? Well, One, it keeps you top of mind. As we know, a lot of, especially in the at-need business, there's the predictability is not really there. I mean, it is from a month or quarterly perspective for your business, but we want to stay top of mind with people. So when they do come up into a situation, maybe they, a friend or family member has had a death, or they're dealing with one is that an informant or something. But we want to stay top of mind. So when a situation does arise where they either want to reach out or talk to the funeral home, you're the first one that comes up. So that's what content marketing can do, is keep you top of mind. It's also a lot more focused on the consumer. So instead of focusing on the business, where we're going to say, hey, here's my great product, here's my great service, here's my catchy jingle, or my missions, or my value statement, or any of the things that are focused on the business, we're saying, let's focus on the consumer. Let's provide the consumer the information that they need to know to be aware of what impact and value the services or products or offerings that you have appeal to them. So it's very much more shifting the conversation from being on the business to the consumer. It's also resourceful. We're providing people valuable information within that content that is really going to help them understand, right? So it's a point of value. If you have a question, we've got content that will be a resource for you to answer the questions that you have. This is extremely important in the death care industry as well. When you look at the death care industry, there's a lot of taboo in talking about the topics that we all know and love so dearly, that the general population is not going to be talking about those. People don't go out to a restaurant or a bar and talk about death, right? So we need to be there when people have those questions and they arise. And content marketing can do that. It can be that resource for them. Content marketing is also scalable. Okay, what does this mean? Scalable means that instead of being able to have that content go out to one person, we can do it to thousands or millions, depending on your community, right? So it's easy to take multiple pieces of content marketing and serve thousands and millions of people without you having to do extra work, right? That's a great thing, especially today in today's age. We want to have things that are scalable. We want to do more of stuff without making a further burden on our day-to-day activities and budgets and life and things like that. So it's really important to be scalable. The other great part about content marketing, it's the way people are used to doing business. It's the way people are used to interacting with brands online today. There's a reason that that people put out blogs, and that people have all this information, contained on their website. When I'm shopping for something, I go and do research, right? So let's say I'm putting in a stereo system into my house. Well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find out what are the best speakers. Do I do wired, not wired? Do I do Google Home? Do I do Sonos? What are the things that I need to know about to make an informed decision? And I'm going to do all that research and all that information gathering before I talk to a salesperson. Okay, and this is as a side note here, you hear about people saying, oh, well, what's the point of a salesperson anymore if people are going out and getting all this information and they don't want to talk to a salesperson. Well, you can provide content, and that's really what marketing does, is it provides us content, but sales provides context. So you really have to have a salesperson help that person who is now educated apply that education to their own specific situation and help walk them across the finish line. So if people are used to getting content, used to doing the research, used to interacting with these materials, let's make sure that we're providing that marketing that's the way that they're used to doing business. Right, so when we look at content marketing and how we get those different messages out, we need to understand that everyone is different and wants to buy differently, right? We can't go out and expect the exact same message in our content to resonate with every single person out there. And that's why we need to create multiple different areas of content, and not just for the individual or the demographics of those people, but also where they're at in their life, especially in the death care industry. If somebody hasn't experienced a very close death, they're going to be coming and reading the type of content that you're putting out from a very different perspective than someone who's just recently lost a a spouse or, a parent or a grandparent. So we need to think about that, right? A common example I always bring up when I talk about this is mattresses, right? So everybody is going to go in and needs to buy a mattress. And in fact, in a lot of cases, I might own the exact same mattress as you own. But if you own the mattress, you might have bought it for different reasons. So let's say you bought a mattress because it was firm and that's how you sleep better. And I bought that same mattress because it was large and I just wanted a bigger bed. Well, if that same mattress company came to me and said, hey, would love to tell you about how a firm mattress can help you sleep better, I'm going to say, I don't care. I want a big bed. So we need to understand that people are different. They want to buy differently. And we need to use technology that is available today to deliver the right message to the right people at the right times in their lives, okay? And we can do that by doing what's called lifetime marketing. So lifetime marketing is a theory within this content marketing where we can deliver pieces of content on where people are in their lifetime, okay? So again, like I said earlier, somebody might be, just experienced a death, somebody might never have experienced a death, and we need to understand where they're at and provide them the right messages as they go along in that line, okay? So lifetime marketing is really a comprehensive outreach strategy where we can take this personalized and educational communications and put it out to people at different stages as they engage with the funeral home online. So let's look at an example here, right? So we can see Dolores here. Dolores here on the far left, her first interaction with any type of content marketing from a funeral home. That first interaction, we want to provide pieces of education. We can provide that education a lot of ways, through social media, through emails, through text. Maybe she went onto the website. There's multiple places where she might get that information. But this educational marketing is going to help her understand that, hey, I'm just getting some really basic level information. Then let's say there's a family death, right? Somebody in the family has died, and Dolores, is now responsible for those arrangements. Well, she's going to need completely different types of content then, information that is going to help her with those decisions, right? So maybe those are funeral options or things like that. But at-need type of content marketing is going to be different when people are in that area of their life. Then when you have a service, after the service has been performed, we need a completely new set of content, right? That's aftercare. I know a lot of people are familiar with aftercare. Of maybe you put out a phone call, or you go knock on their door, or you just send them a card, whatever it is. But think about this as also a part of your marketing, right? We want to deliver unique messages that help them after the service has been performed. I mean, we can also do things like get reviews, but we want to deliver this in multiple ways in the content that's pertinent to where they're at in this aftercare. Maybe in the aftercare, we also get them to attend an event. I know we're all dealing with the struggles of how do we do events, which is part of the reason I'm on this Zoom call today as opposed to being in person. But we have to do events differently. But traditionally, we can just get somebody into an event, and maybe that marketing helps push them into that event. But then after that, we have different types of marketing materials we need to deliver after that event. And another one is, let's say we do get a pre-need sale. So the sales, your pre-need counselors have done a pre-need sale. Well, we don't want to just stop marketing there. We also want to provide marketing materials after that that are more pertinent to the decision that they made and reinforcing that, telling them hey, you did a great job. Here are some other things you might need to know. And then ultimately, when that person passes away, we have multiple new first interactions. Those can be other family members, people who attend the service. But you can see how as we continue on, we can start branching out. This is really where that scalability comes in. So we start with 1, 10, 20 people, and then after however long, it doesn't have to always be a lifetime, but we can do this with thousands and thousands of people. But the key to this lifetime marketing is that each section, each path along here, we need to provide value so people feel like they're getting resources from you that are pertinent to them and you're speaking to them. Okay, and that's ultimately how people do. When you're giving them something of value, they're like, hey, I understand that that this is something that that I need right now, and you're not pushing a product. You're simply pushing education and resources during that time. So let me show you an example of a bad ways to do those types of messages, okay? So I literally pulled these two examples of ads that I saw on Facebook the other day. So these are two ads that I do not want to interact with. These are the types of things when people think about marketing that they think of. They think of a company pushing a product. I don't even know what Zeljans is or whatever it is. I'm sure maybe somebody with active ulcerative colitis might be interested in this. But this is very much pushing a product. Same thing with Home Depot, pushing a central vacuum, right? So these are the types of marketing that people don't want to have. They don't want to interact with it. They know they're being sold to, okay? When you push product, when you talk about what you are, Home Depot is only talking about themselves here. They're not trying to ask or learn anything about me or provide resources in this ad. Same thing with this, pharmaceutical ad, right? So this doesn't add any value to me. This is just pushing a product, and I know that they're just focusing on themselves. They don't care about me. All they want to do is sell a product here. Okay, that's the type of marketing that people know you're selling to them. So if these are bad examples, and we know that these are people pushing product or companies pushing product, let's look at how we can shift a message in the death care industry, especially during people's lifetime, to focus more on the consumer. So I'm going to show you a couple few examples as we go through this lifetime marketing of different resources that you can provide and different ideas on these types of resources that are much more focused on the consumer. So let's look at this educational phase. Obviously there's hundreds, if not thousands, of topics that we can do to provide that education. Excuse me. But I just want to look at a few here. So this first one, unique funeral options, right? This is a great way for people to just have a high level awareness of some funeral options. People who might interact with this are people who think a funeral is the same thing, right? I go in, we have an open casket, everyone sits down in the funeral home or the church, and then we leave and, the burial happens. So people who don't know that there's multiple options might interact with this. They're educating them. We're not saying, hey, come in and pre-plan today. We're not saying, hey, you need to use one of these. We're saying, let us provide you that education. Here's a great relevant topic: 7 ways to stay positive during a crisis, right? This is something that you can just start to create that brand awareness, educate people, help them understand that, hey, I understand that you might be going through a negative time right now dealing with this crisis. Here's some ways that you can help that and move along and provide resources. This is valuable here to people who are struggling. Another one, how to participate in a digital funeral, right? This is something new for, I would say 99% of funeral homes, is how do we do this digitally? And it's not just for you understanding how do we set up Zoom and communicate that to the community. Your community members are also wondering, what should I do for a digital funeral, right? So these are things we're piquing their curiosity, we're providing them that value and that education, we're answering questions for them. So multiple different ways, but this type of content here is not going to be as applicable to somebody who's just experienced a loss. Their mind is not on how to stay positive during a crisis. It's on things like grief, and we'll touch on that here in a second. So let's look at some at-needs. What do people do when, how do you get the information in an at-need scenario, right? What do you do, right? So this one we see over here on the left is the worst call of your life. What do you do? So if somebody passes away, right, what do you do? Do you call the cops, right? Do you call the funeral home first? Do you call the morgue? Who do I need to call to? There's people in your community who are asking these questions that are unsure of the answers of that. Okay, and so if they do have a death or a death is imminent, this is a great way to provide them resources for them to understand what are those steps when that happens or now that it's happened, right? A lot of times, funeral homes, I'll see they just put up a contact us on their website. So somebody goes to the funeral home's website, and the only action that community member can do is to call the funeral home. Well, we can put out resources like this, knowing that people are in an at-need time in their life, and provide them information that's important and informative to them. Um, also learning about options, right? So if somebody has passed away, what do I need to know to make the right decisions? They didn't have any pre-arrangements, so I need to make these decisions, but I don't know all these decisions. Before I go and sit in a funeral home and talk to a funeral director, I want to have some idea of what those options are and start to think about what mom or dad may have wanted. So this is a great way to educate people on those different things when they're in an at-need situation. Aftercare, another great way, different types of messaging that we need to provide here, right? So think about this as grief support. This is a very common one, grief support. A lot of people put in pre-planning messages in this, but you also want to be careful about how you position that, because you don't, pre-planning is one of those things where you're getting closer to a sale, bottom of the funnel, if you want to think of it in other terms. If we get closer to a sale, we need to be careful about how we position that, especially in a sensitive time after somebody's had a recent death. But some other ways that people don't think about aftercare is, let's also provide them information on transitional care, right? So what are the tasks that I have to take after a service, right? What do I do about titles and benefits? And which insurance companies do I talk to? Who needs all the death certificates, right? So these are valuable pieces of information and resources that should be part of your aftercare when you reach out to people, not just checking in to say, hey, we appreciate you and using our services during that difficult time, but also providing them things that are going to help them through life. Another one that I see a lot of funeral homes passing up is, how do I get rid of my digital accounts, right? How do I get rid of my close out my loved one's Facebook page or their Twitter page or LinkedIn or Gmail or Yahoo, any of these things, right? So there's multiple things that your families are going to have to deal with that we can provide them those resources. But again, this is marketing, okay? And people don't feel like they're being marketed to when you're providing them these resources, excuse me. Let's look at some other ones. Sales follow-ups. So there's multiple ways that when people show an interest in stuff that we can have a sales follow-up. Phone is very common, or setting appointments, but we can use marketing materials for that too, right? So inviting people to events, maybe it's a pizza and pre-planning, right? Inviting people to coffee and discussions on estate planning, right? So we can use the marketing to also be more pertinent. If we know what those people are interested in, where they're at in their life, we can provide them very pertinent invites to events as well. What I always tell people at funeral homes to do is, like, let's, when maybe a pre-need counselor has talked to somebody, but they never actually did their pre-arrangements, that's fine. Let's continue to provide them pertinent marketing materials. And then when the timing is right, we want to bridge the gap between digital and face-to-face. So how do we do that? If somebody is interacting with these marketing materials, and that they've had a previous interest in pre-planning, great. Let's pick up the phone, call them, ask them to see if they have any more questions. Provide that value. Hey, Jim, I saw that you talked to us 6 months ago, never did your pre-arrangements, but I saw recently that you showed some interest in the pizza and pre-planning. Just wanted to know if you had any other questions, right? And that's a great way to bridge that conversation and have people be more comfortable from what they were seeing initially with your marketing materials to having it be face-to-face. So great ways to segue that conversation into a more face-to-face things. Take it from marketing into sales, as I always say. So one of the things that you need to be sensitive to is what's going on in the world today, right? I know with COVID-19, I get questions from a lot of funeral homes that come up to me and say, hey, Alex, how do we actually talk? I'm scared of being on Facebook. I don't even want to go on Facebook because people are sensitive, people are scared, people are worried. And I'm going to tell you that, across North America, people are experiencing this differently. Communities, are going up and down in terms of cases, and people are more sensitive or less sensitive, okay? So, and this isn't just with COVID-19, this can be with anything. This can be with natural or man-made disasters. This could be with, sensitivities to, maybe there was a old historic building that burned down in your community. We need to be cognizant of those and how we position the message, because remember, we want to show that we can relate with people. A message that might not work right now on this is being like, how to prepare for death or something like that, right? Because people are going to say, oh, what, now a pandemic started, now you're going to say, hey, I need to, be thinking about this stuff. That's very insensitive. But that doesn't mean that the role of the funeral home is moot. We still need to be out there providing these resources, but be sensitive to this. So what I tell a lot of funeral homes is, if you're trying to be sensitive to this, think of your more top of the funnel types of messages, okay? Grief support, general education, general awareness, maybe talk about how you are responding to the pandemic, how you're keeping the community safe and the families that come visit you. Talk about those protocols. You want to start interacting, you want to continue to interact with people, continue to engage with them, but don't think about trying to push some type of, pre-planning message or stuff. Keep people these high-level messages. And then what you can do is you can periodically, try another message. Try a message that's maybe, a little bit, more talking about their plans. And, we don't have to be hard hitting with those, but if you see some initial negative comments, either address them or stop with that campaign that you were running on Facebook or your website or through email or anything like that. So we need to check if people are ready. What I will tell you is that when this pandemic really first started and kind of hit the whole world, is that within the first month to month and a half, people were a lot more sensitive. We're seeing people really kind of taper off of that and kind of trying to get back to normal life and being a lot less sensitive with that. I will tell you that the engagement numbers that we've been seeing on our funeral homes Facebook accounts that we work with have been through the roof. So people are still interacting, still engaging. A lot of people are sitting at home and on Facebook. So you don't want to ignore these. You want to still, use these venues to get that message out there, but be sensitive about what you're doing. So, poll question. Let's take a quick break to put up a poll, and if everyone can interact with that. There we go. I'll give some time for people to answer the question.
Okay, great. We have some people answering right now. If everyone could participate, that would be fabulous. Which of the following is an example of a non-salesy message? So I see 35% have voted, so we're just going to give them a few more moments here, Alex.
Okay.
Okay, I think you're going to be fairly happy with the results. But you tell me, you're the expert. So far we have 13% our cremation offerings are the best service you'll find, and we have 87% on what families overlook when making arrangements.
All right, yes. So the correct answer is what families overlook when making arrangements. So thank you everyone for voting on that. I will talk about that. Let me see if I can get back. Here we go. So the reason that the A is not the correct answer is because it's really talking about the business, our cremation offerings are the best services. We are the best at what we do, right? It really provides no value to the consumer. Whereas B is a lot more focused on the families. You as a family, you as the consumer, I want to provide you with those resources, you with those education materials. So we say, hey, here's what you're looking when making arrangements. I'm not trying to tell you to come in and make pre-arrangements or at-need arrangements or anything. What I'm trying to tell you to do is get the education so you can be informed and educated on this topic. So really much more focused on the consumer, much more focused on value and education. So thank you everyone again for voting on that. All right, so now we've talked about some of the messages and when we need to deliver it to people. How do we actually get those messages, right? How do I create those resources to provide this education, right? you are, you have a much higher level of education on the services and the value of your services and why people should care about them. But we need to get that information out to the community and especially be cognizant of where people are in their lifetime, right? And how do we do that? Well, there are a few different ways that you can actually create, excuse me, create the resources to do this, right? There's obviously companies that do this. Funeral Innovations is one of them. But if you're trying to do this yourself, which I know a lot of funeral homes do, there's a few places you can do that. So Canva is a great resource for going on and making your own types of Facebook posts or digital brochures that you can put on your website or anything to distribute. So Canva is something that I would say if you're doing it yourself, you can go on there and do it yourself. Canva is great about helping you navigate the permissions and copyrights available on different images. I will say if you go to Google, you right click and you download an image, be careful of that. A lot of those are copyrighted and you have to pay to license those. There are literally companies that are built up around finding companies who have illegally used an image that they found on the internet. So just be careful. Canva's great about that. They'll help you navigate that. But I would say to use something more professional like that, the prices are really reasonable, and I think they even have some free options. Two other ones I wanted to mention here are Fiverr and Upwork. These are ones that if you have an idea or just want to hop on a call and unload some information and then have somebody else take your ideas and your information and build something themselves, Fiverr and Upwork are great ways to do that. Fiverr originally started as a website where you could pay somebody, $5 and they'll be like, here's what I would do for $5. So some of those are like, I will copy a paper record and type everything out for $5, every 10 pages, something like that. But now they do a lot of design services. So you can go on there and be like, all right, I want to make a resource on living wills. So you can go on to Fiverr and say, hey, here's everything I know about living wills. I'm going to unload some information on you. You create the resource, the graphics, and then come back to me when it's ready. It's very reasonably cost, and it's a great thing. Upwork is just their competitor, so another great one. There is literally hundreds, if not thousands, of resources out there that you can do it if you want to do it yourself, or if you have a person more responsible for your social media or digital marketing in-house, you can also have them work that or use Canva. So, all right, now some important considerations if you're doing it yourself. So these are just some tips on how to be effective with your graphics, right? The message is one thing, but we also have to pique people's curiosity and get them to actually tune in to what we're doing. So these are some quick tips on how to make more effective graphics when you're distributing that on, and we'll talk about how you distribute that here in a second. But one, the simpler the better, okay? So don't make it busy. Don't have a lot of text. Don't have a lot. And in fact, if you do it on Facebook, if you're familiar with Facebook, Facebook actually limits you to how much text versus how much image you can have on a post. So if you put too much text, you try to put it up on Facebook, they'll be like, no, you can't do that. So the simpler the better. So keep it simple. You want it to be eye-catching, right? So colors are really good, and things that pop. So you can see this rose down here. That rose really stands out, and it catches your eyes, right? In the middle one, we see a what is that? Orange, reddish, pinkish type of middle of that catches your eyes, and then you see the with music, so you read the rest of it. So we want to think about being eye-catching. Maximum of 2 fonts. I see a lot of bad graphics that will have 5, 6 different types of fonts. Save your wingdings types fonts for another time. Just have to make them look more professional. Faces and emotions do very well. That's a prime example here in the far right, bottom right. We can see that this man it's hard to interpret his emotions, but when we see the word grieving, we understand that that's what that's about. We can really see his emotion. There's a reason it's called Facebook, is faces do actually really well on Facebook. So if you're using Facebook, think about that. Same thing with your website or anywhere else you're putting these materials together. Already touched on this, but limit the amount of text you use on those. So just some quick tidbits on how to create those graphics there. If you do want more inspiration, there is a link to our website here. If you can't write this down quick enough, I'll give a couple seconds here. Feel free to email me at alex@funeralalinnovations, and I'd be happy to send this to you. But there's great resources on this page for doing, finding topics, content topics, how to create graphics, links to theories about how to put that out. So tons of information on there. Promo.funeralinnovations.com/free content. Again, feel free to email me, alex@funeralinnovations.com, if you would like that link. So, all right. So now we've created our resources and our graphics. We feel good, but we don't want to just have them sitting there stagnant, right? This isn't the days of where we could put a brochure on the front brochure thing when you walk into the funeral home and people will grab it. We need to actually actively get it out into the community. One of the best ways to do that still to this day is Facebook. Okay. So 82% of adults are on Facebook. As I said, during the pandemic, even more people have been coming back onto Facebook and doing things and interacting there. And we can use Facebook ads to get our message and that content out to people and find people at different points in their lifetime to make sure we're delivering the right content, right? So one of the great things about Facebook ads is I know a lot of people put this information on Facebook as a post. That's great, and you should put it out on your Facebook page. But here's the problem with just doing it on your Facebook page is you're just preaching to the choir. Okay, the people who are already following your Facebook page are more often than not already loyal to you and are going to use you. But we want to start getting more people in the community to be aware of you and the value that you're providing to the families that you serve. So Facebook ads are a great way to get your message out beyond the people that you're already in conversation with. So an important thing to note about this is if you have fans or followers on your page, your Facebook page, less than 5% of them are ever going to see just a regular post you put out there. Now, the exceptions are to this. If you put out a great post that people start really interacting with quickly, Facebook will show it to more people. But on average, less than 5% of the people following your page will ever see a post you put out. So say you have 100 people on your Facebook page that are following you, only 1 to 5 of those on average are ever going to see that post. So that's where we can do Facebook ads, boosting, paying Facebook to say, take this content and show it to more people in my community. So a great stat that we have is that 92% or 92 people are reached for every dollar you spend. The costs have been increasing a little bit on Facebook, especially during the pandemic, because more people are jumping on Facebook and Facebook is charging more to reach them. But you don't have to put too much budget into this. I mean, we've seen very effective with $20. I will tell you, majority of funeral homes are usually putting in about $100 to $400 or $500 per month onto Facebook. But try it out. If you're worried about it, just spend $20, boost a post or run a Facebook ad. And we can start reaching other people. You're going to set your area to be just in your service area, but you can start to reach people in the community by taking this content and getting it out to people. Okay, so definitely something to be aware of is to boost or run ads. So when we're taking this content and we're putting it out, we want to further engage these people on Facebook. Okay, so Facebook has the thing called lead forms. So we can take this ad, run it on Facebook and say, hey, if you would like this information, give us your email and your name, even your phone number. You can increase the amount of information or decrease it just to email address. It's up to you. But we want people to start interacting with it. We also want to know if it's effective. Are people interested in the content I'm putting out there? If you're not seeing people sign up for it, you just have it sitting on your website for everyone to download, you don't know if it's effective. So we want to make sure that people are providing something in exchange for that content you're putting out, right? This is also known as a lead magnet. Some of you may have heard that term before, but Facebook does this really great. If you have a Facebook account, which you would if you saw it on Facebook, it'll automatically fill out these fields for that community member who wants to get that information. They hit next, and then you can automatically send that information over to that person. So you still don't have to do anything, you just have to run that Facebook ad. So it makes it very easy for people to do on desktop and especially on mobile phones. If they, over 50% of internet traffic today now comes from mobile devices. So if it's easy to do on mobile, it'll help how much, how many people are actually filling out this form and getting that information. So one thing to note about when you're doing this on Facebook is that Facebook is inherently a public forum. Okay, so it's like going out and me sitting up here and talking to all of you, right? Some of you might want to deepen a conversation with me, but it doesn't feel like the right venue to do it here on this event and this meeting that we're having, right? And that's kind of the way Facebook is. If you're interacting with stuff on Facebook, people are a little worried about their privacy, but also about other community members maybe seeing them interact with a funeral home on Facebook, right? People don't want others to know that they're experiencing grief. So if you put out grief resources and you have it on Facebook, you want to make sure that you provide them a more private forum to do that, okay? So a great way to do that is by saying, hey, just show an interest and let's do it, through these lead forms, and I will give you all the information and we can start a conversation in a more private forum. Like email is a great way to do that. You can do text. You can even, when you see somebody fill it out, call them and say, hey, would love to come by and drop this off. If you're not comfortable with that, I can also email it. But there's multiple ways. You just want to take that conversation from a public forum like Facebook, move it to a more private forum like you would do with email, text, phone, whatever it is. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. So how do we follow up, right? So people have filled out the information on this lead form, and you're seeing that somebody is interested in this. There's definitely, and we'll cover it here in a bit, software that will automatically send that information that they're asking for, whether it's grief support or living wills or whatever it is. So we can automatically send that, but you can also do this manually, right? So let's say you don't want to do it automatically and you just want to write a personal note to each person who sends it out. You can do that via email. But this is an example of maybe one of those emails that you would send out. Somebody signs up, we want to brand it with you, and you say, hey, you've requested this living will guide. I'm going to send it to you now. One of the things that I think it's important to note about this is when you send an email during content marketing, the big difference between this is an email that maybe you got from Home Depot about a central vacuum for whatever reason, is that people opt into this. You're actually asking people to request to receive that information. If I were to reach out to Home Depot and say, hey, I'm really interested in central vacuums, can you send me some information? I'm going to be looking out for that email. And it's the same way in this. If people are requesting to receive that information, now you're going to be sending them an email and they're going to be expecting it. In fact, a lot of times if the email doesn't go out, you will have people reach out to you and say, hey, I wanted to get this living will guide, where is it? And this is a really key differentiator between type of marketing that people know you're marketing and when they don't know you're marketing. It's crazy that you can put out these resources and people are actively requesting it. And if they don't get it, they're like, what the heck? Even though that's marketing, they don't really realize it. And this is the beauty of this, is having this kind of content marketing that people opt into. So newsletters are a great way to get more of this information out. The key thing to note about Facebook is that not everybody is on Facebook. So if not everybody is on Facebook, we want to have additional ways to reach people. And newsletters can be a great way to do that after people are interacting with your content. So let's hop over to another poll question here. I think we're going. There we go. Okay, so I can address this one, Karen, and it's why should you not solely rely on Facebook for educating and engaging people? And I will give everyone a few minutes here to fill that out.
Okay, it looks like we're at 46%, so we'll give them a few more moments.
People are getting quicker at that.
Okay, it looks like we have it's it's public and people aren't comfortable at 4%. We have not everybody is on Facebook at 3%. It's hard to reach every single person you contact with 2%, and all of the above at 92%.
Good job, everyone. It is D, all the above. Again, public and people aren't comfortable having those discussions there. We want to take it to a more private place. So Facebook alone is not good for that. Not everyone is on Facebook, so we want to have alternate means beyond Facebook, and I'll touch on that here in a second. It's hard to reach every single person with your content, so we need to diversify from Facebook to do that. Okay, so when you have this content, let's not just think about putting it on Facebook. We also want to have this stuff on your website, okay? So your website is a great way to distribute these resources and be clever about where you put these. A lot of people just put them on the plan ahead page or maybe under Aftercare or resources. You want to have them distributed throughout. You want to be driving traffic back to your website all the time, but we don't just want the website to be standing there. We want people to engage with it, okay? So by putting up your resources in more places on your website, you can have people engage with it more and start this process of being, this content marketing with people not knowing they're being marketed to. A big place to do this, obituaries. Obituaries are by far and away the most visited part of your website, but all too often people treat obituaries as just a place to grab flower sales, okay? Let's not use a website just to grab a flower sale. That doesn't serve you, the community, or your business. It might serve the family because they see those flowers, but long-term, you can provide more value to your community by also providing those resources and getting people to engage on those obituaries when they go there. So we know people are going there, excuse me, how else can we start that relationship with them, provide this content onto the obituary page, and get people to start interacting with them? Again, we want to have landing pages, collect that contact info. So on Facebook, we use lead forms. On a website, we can use landing pages. So if people click on that, we again want to get their contact information to be able to further communicate with them, send them additional supplemental resources related to that topic, help people usher themselves along that lifetime marketing by providing different topics along that. And we need to get their contact information to continue that. Websites are great using landing pages for that. So another thing to think about with landing pages is also by providing those content and resources for niche sections of your community, so subsections of your community. So what do I mean by this? Are there retirement communities you want to cause specifically? What about different ethnicities or religious groups, right? How do you want to show the Latino population that you understand their funeral rituals and that you want to serve them? Or maybe the Asian community, or maybe you have a retirement community such as this. This is the Villages community down in Florida that has, that this landing page calls out specifically to that community and says, here's how we're serving that. So you want to think about your landing pages to provide resources, but speak to those people in their language, right? You don't want to just have some general messaging that you're trying to make everybody happy. Serve your community and the subsections of your community. Landing pages are great ways to do that. And the other valuable thing that you can do when you have these landing pages is you can drive traffic and get more people to those landing pages by running Google ads. So if you are not familiar with Google ads pop up on Google when you type in a search term. You've probably all seen them where they look like this, have the little green ad box, and then has a link there. These are great ways to do that on common phrases or subsections of the community you're serving. So let's go back to that Irish Catholic example. So if people are Irish Catholic, you could have a landing page talking about Irish Catholic ceremonies and how you respect those. Then you could run a Google ad that talks about the Irish Catholic subsection of the population. And when you run that, now you're driving people who have an interest in Irish Catholic funerals, drive them to that landing page. You're now speaking to their talk. You're providing them education and resources on that. You're speaking their language, and they say, hey, I relate more to these people. They definitely understand me, my culture, and what I'm curious about. So I know we talked about a lot of things here. There's a lot of companies who combine these different things. I will tell you, a lot of these, you do have to create your own content. We obviously help funeral homes with that content, the strategy. But you look at things like MailChimp. MailChimp is a great way to provide that private form of getting your content out via email, same with Constant Contact. Twilio is a great way to get that information out via any type of communication, whether it be phone or text. ClickSend is the same way. HubSpot is another one. Salesforce, if anybody's familiar with Salesforce, has a lot of things like that. There, again, on this one are hundreds, if not thousands, of providers that can take all these, Facebook, email, your website, combine them all together so that you're distributing resources out across all of them and making a much more consistent feel for your community members when they're interacting with you with that content marketing. So again, the right message at the right time to the right person, right? What does that do? It builds trust, it strengthens relationships, and ultimately grows your business. And the best part about this is you're doing it all without them know you're marketing and or selling to them. All right, with that, we've got 9 minutes left here on the hour to answer any questions. So Karen, did you want to see if any questions came through or anything
Sure,
like
I have a couple of questions here actually. I'm going to start with the one,
that?
what do you feel are some ways to talk about the quality of service we have at the funeral home?
Yeah, so when you're talking about the quality of service, those are things that you want to. All too often, quality of service is something that people don't ever experience until they walk into your front door with, when somebody has passed away. And we don't want to just have that be the quality of service. So quality of service can be in your content by, talking about like maybe personalized ceremonies that you did and, ways that you help families or unique celebrations of life that people did. So that's a great way to talk about that. The other way to do it that I always say is when people are interacting with this type of content marketing is to pick up a phone and call them. Say, hey, I saw that you had questions and you were getting information. I have some additional resources. Can I send those over to you? That shows that you're quality and that you care. So let's not just look at quality of service as being, what type of content do I put out there, but also how do I serve those people before they walk into the front door? The more quality that you provide in terms of your interactions with people, the more they're going to tell people about that as well. So kind of snowball effects too, but there's a lot of different types of content pieces you can put out to talk about the quality of your services and how you're uniquely serving them. Those subsection ones are a great way to do that as well. If you show like how you serve that Irish Catholic community and show that, here are the unique celebrations we did for them, that also shows that you're providing that quality.
Okay, great. There's another question here. I know you touched on things these days being viewed as sensitive. Um, how do I gauge my community without risking backlash?
Yeah, that can be a tough one. I think you want to think about your content and the topics that you're providing in terms of how close are we to asking them for a sale or being like, hey, would love to set up a consultation with you to see if we can get your arrangements written down. So what I always say is try to align those in terms of a funnel. So top of funnel, bottom of funnel, right? Bottom of funnel would be more about like coming, hey, we're setting up consultations for people. Come in if you would like to get your arrangements written down. We're saying, bottom of funnel would also be, the seven regrets that people have when they didn't pre-plan their funeral, right? The top of the funnel would be more things about like grief or, general awareness about like, that cremation is a disposition, not a full service. Middle of the funnel would be more about planning for other things. So planning for your will or your estate or something like that. So what I always say is start at the top. When those go out, see how people respond to them. Go to the next one. If if people are responding less favorably to them, they're going to write a comment, okay? Or you're not going to get as much interaction. The great thing about Facebook is if somebody does, respond not favorably to that, there's a lot of ways that you can do that. You can stop running that ad, you can delete that post, you can hide that comment depending on what they say in it. So there's a lot of ways that you can do it, but you'll start to see some early indicators if you start from the top of that funnel and move down with your content.
Just to ask, to add to that, you just mentioned removing an ad. Sometimes that can have a backlash of its own if you're removing someone's comments. Is there something you can suggest when you would do that or
Great.
when you wouldn't do that?
So the great thing about ads over boosting a post is that ads only show up when you're paying Facebook to do it. So if you do it on a post, you can't have a backlash because people are going to see that. Ads are not one of those things where if somebody interacts with it, they can go back again and see it some other time. So if you run a boosted post, you definitely can get could get some backlash. You definitely could get some backlash for deleting a post. But if you're on a Facebook ad and things aren't going well, you can just stop your ad budget to that, and then people will no longer see that. And that happens all the time.
Okay, great. Another question here. How do you pick your demographics for your Facebook pictures?
I would say that's very much dependent on your market. Who are the people you are serving, right? If you have a much more multicultural community, you would definitely want to have more varied faces on there, and different genders on there, things like that. So I would say it's very much more in line with your marketing, or I'm sorry, your market. One of the things to note is that if you do something like a ethnicity that you want to specifically target, Facebook doesn't really have an exact way to do that. So more think about it in terms of when you target an audience, think about it as their interests. So we've worked a lot with like a Jewish communities where we would say, all right, what interest does a Jewish community have, and find those groups on Facebook, and then target them with, hey, here are the ways that we're serving the Jewish community. So that might not be necessarily changing your graphic. Of course, we'd have to Star of David or something on there to show that that's what we're doing. But think about that. We talked about how do we provide content for those subsections of your community. That's where I would think more about how you change up those graphics to be applying more to your market. Another clever way we do that is also by showing things within your community. So maybe the state capitol building, or a famous bridge, or the fire department, or something that people visually see and they're like, hey, I know where that is. That will also help the graphics appeal more to your market.
Perfect. Okay. There is a question regarding Canva and the other websites you mentioned. We at the office use the Canva, which is great. We found it's really easy to use. Could you elaborate on that, and the costs and how that works?
Oh boy, I don't have a lot of information on the costs, but I know Canva does have, you go in and they have a lot of, you basically can sign up. I think they have a free account. And mind you, our design team uses Canva a lot. They actually use some other ones more now, but that was, some what they used for it. So the reason I say that is I don't have a lot of experience actually signing up with Canva and using it. I know a lot of funeral homes that we work with now were using it before. So there's only so much information I can give to you on that.
That's
But
okay.
perhaps,
What we'll do is afterwards, we'll send them the links to these websites
yeah,
and they can
that'd be
check it
great.
out. But also, because we do use Canva, there is a free sign up, and then you pay per photo stock. So if you use, there are some free ones on there you can use, but there's also ones you pay as you download, and you can recreate your own photos with text and pictures and logos and things like that. So I think we'll follow up with some links to that so they can investigate. Everyone can investigate. Okay, there's another
Yep.
question here. Can I use some of the materials my pre-need company has given me?
Yes, absolutely. So I know a lot of pre-need companies have the pre-planning guides that they've created for funeral homes. Those are great, but if you only have a physical copy, just ask your pre-need company for the digital copy, and you can use that as a download. I know some pre-need counselors prefer to drop off the physical one to have a conversation at the person's house. You can still do that. You can still run ads on Facebook to have people request a pre-planning guide, and then when they provide their information, call them and arrange a time to drop it off. So there's definitely a lot of resources that you can do with your pre-need company. I know only a select few have like things other than a pre-planning guide. So that would be something I would ask your pre-planning company or your third-party marketer what they have. Obviously, your third-party marketer would probably be doing it themselves. But yeah, your pre-need companies can definitely help you provide some of those resources to target people and different content to target people at different times.
Fabulous, thank you. And I'm just going to go with one more question because I have it here. They're asking for some wording, some sample wording on promoting an upcoming seminar. Is that something they would be able to find on your website, or do you have any suggestions of wording or where they can find sample
Uh,
wording?
so I will tell you, it kind of it depends. It depends on what the event is. So like something for estate planning, the wording would be a lot different than something for like pizza and pre-planning versus, some I don't know, Flag Day event or whatever. So we want to think about that in terms of what that event is. The other thing to consider is who you're targeting. If you're targeting everybody, the message needs to be a little bit different versus if you're targeting people who've shown an interest in pre-planning before. So what I don't think we have that wording on our website. I can look at it, but what I would suggest, I'm happy to show you some examples of event wording that we've done for other funeral homes. If you email me at alex@funeralinnovations.com, I'd be happy to pull that up for you, whoever asked that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks, Alex. Okay, it is 2 o'clock. So we thank you for your time and your expertise today. Like I mentioned earlier, this is worth CEC credits for 1 hour, and I will send you you will be sent an email with your certificate. Um, in the next few days. Also, please know that I will also follow up with the links we spoke about, Alex's email and contact information. And if you have any other questions, like Alex said, please feel free to contact him, or you can contact us at info@OFSA. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you,
This,
everyone.
okay,
Have a good day.
this ends the webinar. Thank you.